Tales of the Compendium Number 1. War of the Celestial Sons, Origins of the Dwarven Kin. Written and narrated by Mason Adey. A Blackscreen Audio Production. From whence they came is a mystery that none shall ever solve. But when Morvanna and Valdereth, mother and father of all, arrived from beyond the stars, they found a vast expanse of nothingness. They claimed it as their own, cultivating the void and shaping it as they saw fit. Countless eons passed as they worked, until, at long last, they had crafted a world of which they could be proud. It was their masterpiece, and they named it Omnia. Morvanna and Valdereth had many children, but they were not kind and loving parents. From time to time, they would pit their children against each other, because it entertained them. They revelled in the bloody disputes of their offspring, marvelling at their violence and favouring those who triumphed, showering them in glory. This fostered an intensely competitive spirit amongst the lesser gods. Aurund was lost in obscurity. He was not as wise or as mighty as his kin, and no matter what he did, or how hard he tried, he could never win the praise of his beloved parents. He was ignored and unloved. Aurund saw how his mother and father fawned endlessly over his brother and his precious creations. The elves were Authun's pride and joy. He had created them as a gift that Morvanna and Valdereth had accepted with glee. This, thought Aurund, was his answer. Descending from the heavens, the forgotten son came to rest for a while in the wilderness of Omnia. He travelled far and wide for an age, undecided in his course of action, until one day he came across a vast mountain range, and it called to him. Using naught but his bare hands, over the course of 1,000 years, Aurund tunnelled deep into the heart of Omnia's greatest mountain. Through his toil, he carved himself a home, and here he created his children. From the rocks inside the mountain, the forgotten son crafted 3 beautiful sculptures. Statues that would move even the greatest artist to tears. But they were cold and lifeless, and without being. This drove Aurund mad with grief, and into those statues he poured his life force. So it was that the first 3 Dwarven kings were born. Alongside their father, the dwarfs helped to create their brothers and sisters. Eventually, there were many dwarfs. At first they were unsophisticated and limited, dull-minded and dim-witted, simple and crude. Their father lived amongst them, gifting them with his wisdom and guidance. As the world grew and matured, so too did the dwarfs. Finally, when he felt that they were ready to live without him, Aurund emerged from his mountain fortress and returned to the plains of Valderoth to seek the praise of his parents. At first, they were confused. Aurund's children were small and sturdy. They lacked the grace, beauty, and intelligence of Authun's children. Unlike the elves, the dwarfs seemed to have no advanced abilities, and they were so young that they had achieved nothing. Morvanna and Valdereth were not impressed. The dwarfs were connected to their father. They felt his disappointment and shame, his pain and sorrow, and so they resolved to make him proud. They began to tunnel ever deeper into the mountains. As living stone they had come from the earth, and forging their kingdom within its warm embrace made them feel at home. This, then, was how the dwarfs found their love of mining. Aurund fled into the unknown realms, and there he stayed for 10,000 years, alone and ashamed, until one day he felt a beautiful melody within his soul. The song of his children's devotion called him back to them, and upon his return he found that they had not been idle in his absence. The dwarfs presented their father with the fruits of their labour. They had burrowed tirelessly and without rest into the depths of the world. So vast was their kingdom, it could have easily housed every living soul that called Omnia their home. They showed Aurund that their excavations had uncovered many treasures. Piece by piece, they had assembled a mighty hoard of gemstones and precious metals. They had created breathtaking works of art and developed the most advanced machinery in the world. Their craftsmanship was unrivaled, and they had poured their passion into the kingdom of Darvheim, striving to build a civilization worthy of their father. Thus, Aurund returned to his parents, and as he stood before them in their great hall, with his head held high, he bid them to look upon his children once more. O mother and father of all, see how far my children have come. See what they have achieved. Is this not the finest kingdom in all of Omnia? My children have honoured me with their tribute, but it is not I to whom the glory belongs. I am proud. I am their maker, but you are mine. So, then, is this not your grandeur laid bare? Morvana and Veldereth gazed upon the kingdom of Darvheim with curious eyes. Its many riches stoked the fires of their greed as they fed upon the energy that the dwarfs had poured into their home. This, they decreed, truly was a tribute worthy of their majesty, and they honoured the dwarven kin with their blessing. At long last, Aurund had finally garnered the approval of his parents, but, in the process, he had also earned the ire of his brother. No longer the apple of his parents' eye, no longer their favoured son, Authund was enraged by the dishonour, and he swore an oath of vengeance. Channeling the power of the stars themselves, Authund summoned a wealth of dark, elemental magic. This he used to assault the mountains of Darvheim with a barrage of torrential floods and lightning strikes, firestorms, and gargantuan quakes. Chaos and destruction fell upon the dwarven kin, and though many of them escaped into the outside world as Darvheim crumbled around them, many more did not. A little over a third of Aurund's beloved children remained by the time Authund exhausted his jealous rage, and the onslaught was over. 2 million fallen dwarfs were trapped beneath the ruins of Darvheim, of which only 3 peaks remained. These were the first of the dwarven kin to die. In the celestial halls, Aurund heard the calls of his fallen children. He felt their dismay, their torment, as if it were his own. The truth can be a terrible thing. Even love's labour may have unintended consequences. Aurund had bestowed a great gift upon his children, but, alas, he had forgotten the price that all must pay. From the moment that death claimed the fallen dwarfs, Aurund's gift began to fade, and the process of repetrification began. This was the curse of the dwarven kin. Only cremation could set their souls free, for as living stone, their mortal vessels could not wither or decay. Omnia was slowly reclaiming them, and they were reverting to their natural state. If the process of repetrification was allowed to complete, their effigy would become their tomb. Their souls, fully aware of their fate, would be imprisoned until the end of time, and denied their rightful passage to the celestial halls of their makers. The Dwarven father knew this now, and he mourned his oversight. Heartbroken, Aurund returned to Omnia in haste. There he found what remained of the Dwarven kin, trying desperately to reach their fallen, and he wept as he heard the songs of their grief. The children of Aurund begged their father for help. Surely, they reasoned, so mighty was their father that he must know of a way to save the souls of their fallen kin. Aurund looked upon them, stern-faced and resolute. "Hear me now, my children," Aurund cried, the resonance of his voice lessening their pain and fortifying their spirits. "Beneath the ruins of our Darvheim, many tunnels and caverns have collapsed. Fires rage, and great chasms have opened. Alas, my children, we would never reach your brothers and sisters before my gift fades entirely. I am the architect of your design. I am your maker. I am your father, and I love you. Hear me now and know my truth. I hear the call of the fallen, and I will not allow their eternal damnation. My brother has betrayed us, but this will not go unchallenged. This nemesis of the Dwarven kin shall pay, and if he does not answer to me, then we will take our quarrel to his children. Their blood will be our recompense." The mother and father of all had followed as unseen observers, but now, roused by their son's passionate fury, they revealed their presence. They decreed that the brothers should wage war and settle their dispute in the crucible of the gods. This desolate star system was often used as a celestial colosseum, and it was a fitting battleground to host this blood feud. The victorious brother would be granted their heart's desire. There is no account of the Blothrend, for most of it was beyond the comprehension of mere mortals. Moons were obliterated, smashed into naught but cosmic dust, and planets were reduced to mere asteroid belts. Supernovas ignited, and black holes opened their greedy maws. This interstellar turmoil swept across the crucible of the gods. As the brothers battled amidst the void, they sent ripples of destruction throughout the fabric of space and time itself. Finally, after 500 years of all-out war, exhaustion was the downfall of Aurund. Aurund had been patiently anticipating this moment, waiting for his brother to flag, and when the opportunity presented itself, he pounced upon it. The Dwarven father called upon the strength of his children, for if this was to be his victory, then it was his desire that they should share it. The dwarfs had devoted themselves to the task of rebuilding their home, never losing faith in their father's return. When they heard his rallying cry, they sang to him the song of war, and he summoned the might of their fury for one final onslaught. Torrents of pure dark matter were being expelled from great fissures within the fabric of reality, and Aurund feasted upon them, his power growing exponentially. In that moment, if he so wished, he could have dispatched the mother and father of all and taken his place as the ruler of his kin. Dominion over all was within his grasp, but the retribution of his children was his only true desire. Reaching out with his mind, using all his might, Aurund tore a breach within the soul of his enemy. As he stood tall over his fallen brother, the crucible of the gods was disintegrating all around them. Victory was approaching. "You will submit to me," commanded Aurund, his voice rippling out across the cosmos. "You will submit to me and beg the forgiveness of my children." Aurund's agony was ineffable, but he was stubborn and defiant. He glared up at his brother with a blazing hatred, and he refused to submit. Aurund had known that would be his answer, for his brother was too proud, and, in truth, he had hoped for it. The screams of the elven father's suffering as his brother tore away at his soul were heard across all of reality. Finally, when he knew that he was close to annihilation, Aurund relented and accepted his defeat. "Have mercy, brother of mine," Aurund begged, weeping on his back in the smouldering ashes of a dying planet. "I beg the forgiveness of my brother and his children. I submit to you, Aurund, mighty son of the Celestial Union. Please, have mercy." Though he came so very close, Aurund chose not to execute his treacherous sibling. Instead, he carried the broken remains of the elven father back to the plains of Valdaroth. Morvana and Valdareth were waiting, and they smiled upon their blood-soaked son as he threw his brother down before them. "Well, well, the hero returns triumphant after a battle well fought. What, then, is your heart's desire, son of mine?" asked Morvana, intrigued by this turn of events. She had assumed that Aurund would be victorious. "My request is threefold," said Aurund, gazing at each of his parents in turn. "Set free the souls of my fallen children, aid the Dwarven kin in rebuilding our home, and allow us the incarceration of my brother. He will be sealed within the deepest chasm of Darvheim, bound by chains forged by my own hands, and there he will remain for 2,000,000 years. Only then will his debt be paid. Only then will I grant his freedom and restore his soul." Aurund's gift had earned his glory, and so his wish was his parents' command. They made a solemn vow that his word would be done. Then they summoned the souls of the fallen dwarves to the plains of Valdaroth, where they were given a hero's welcome. So began the second age of the Dwarven kin. The children of Aurund were blessed with long life, but they were not immortal. Of the 3 Dwarven kings, first born under the mountain, only one would live to see the day that Darvheim was restored to its former glory. The might and prosperity of their kingdom would be the labour of the dwarfs' devotion, the dedication of their hearts and hands, for many generations to come. Over the years, as death came for them one by one, each dwarf was carried to the highest peak of Darvheim and granted an honourable cremation in the Hall of Aurund. The repetrification process they named Darv-Ragnok, or Dwarf's Bane in the common tongue, and to subject one of Aurund's beloved children to such a fate was considered the most grievous act of sacrilege. As for Aurund, he seethed as he served his sentence deep beneath the mountains, without sight, nor sound, nor privilege of light, utterly alone in his ceaseless agony. 2,000,000 years of torment, of waiting, of biding his time and plotting his revenge. The Blothrend was over, but the fighting would resume, for this was but the opening chapter in this eternal sibling rivalry, the never-ending war of the Celestial Sons.